everybody. I'm Sarah Russin. I'm the director of LACE. Welcome tonight. I just wanted to say a couple words. We're not at LACE today. We're at LAXART. And I want to thank our friends Samson and Hamza here for hosting LACE while our building is undergoing a one-year renovation. If you're not familiar with LACE, it's Los Angeles Contemporary Exhibitions. And we're the longest running incubator for artists and curators in Los Angeles. So we've been around since 1978. And our curator, our chief curator and director of programming is here, Daniela Lieja Quintanar, if you'd like to meet her tonight. And then the other LACE folks, there's Bren Perry out front and Juan Silverio, who's also photographer tonight, I guess. I did not sign a waiver, by the way, so I don't know how to do that. So I just wanted to, and Marcus, our intern from Pittsburgh College this semester. So we're excited because poor Marcus has been on Zoom with us for a while. So this is like a 3D event. So we're super excited to have him come out. So I just wanted to say a little bit about LACE. And this presentation is part of our Emerging Curators program. And we selected Kat at like a year and a half ago, 2 years, 3 years ago, COVID time, who knows how long ago that was. So the day has finally come where we are presenting this project and we're super excited. So it's been great to work with Kat. The idea behind the Emerging Curators program is to, we field all kinds of proposals that come in and we have panelists who select a project. We knew we were going to be out of our building and we decided to do a call for performance projects. It's our first time doing that. So Kat's project was selected from many, many proposals. And we're super excited. So we're going to have this weekend and next weekend. There's a program out front so you can see all the things that we're going to be doing. And also hanging together in person. So I love it. So congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so I think this is about as far as I can go. This has definitely been a long time coming, for sure. And I think it helps to see like so many familiar faces and friends and family. You're all family to me. And just thinking about like when I even put together the short that you can take a look at here, thinking about like trans masculinity and about my own masculinity and about my own trans existence in general, and thinking about where am I seeing that outside of myself? Where in the media, where in community spaces, where am I seeing myself? And I think that I just didn't see enough of that. And I know that in order for me to continue to do the work that I want to do or just exist in the ways that I want to exist, I need community. Like I need you all to show up, and I need you all to be here, and I need you all to celebrate with me, and like the big and the little, and it like all the things in between. And so I think this was definitely a project where I was like, what's close to me, what's close to my heart, what do I want to showcase? And that's just trans masculine existence in like the simplest form. And I think there's so much that can exist within that space, and I'm not trying to limit that. My existence is different from the next. It's different from every single performer that you will see tomorrow, that you'll see up on this panel tonight. And it's funny because like I put together this short, and it was just a short. It was just supposed to be like, okay, this is what I'm creating. I wanted it to be for another project that I was trying to be part of, and that didn't happen. The universe said we have other plans for you. And Terrell actually was the biggest motivator, if not like the motivator, for me to even start this. So I definitely want to like show love to you, and I appreciate you so much. I literally wasn't gonna do that. I wasn't going to apply because I was like, I'm not, like, I can't do this. I don't know about curating the show. Like, I can't, like, that's just not me. I had all these knots. And so I was like, fucking apply. Like, it's so simple. You can literally just submit your shit. If it sticks, it sticks, and you go with it. If not, then you move on, and we keep it pushing. So I love you. Thank you. So I just want to share that. I want to say thank you to Lace and the whole Lace team, Juan, Marcus, Brennan, Daniela, Sarah, everybody for like, you know, just supporting what it is that we're doing. Yes, shout out to the Lace team. There you go. You know, for providing this whole thing for people to be able to put together a show. I appreciate that. LAX for providing the space. I'm really, really grateful to them for that. The performers, Sir, Nick, Danni, Jaden, Aasir. I don't know if I see Aasir here yet. Am I missing anyone? I'm not missing anyone. Sir, Jaden, Aasir, Nick, Danni. I think I got everybody. Jesi, Seven. I'm just excited. What happened? Daniel B Coleman. Oh my God, yes. They're not here with us right now. They're in North Carolina, but we're gonna be screening their work, so you'll be able to see their work. So yeah, I'm just thankful to you all for just being down to be a part of this and being like, yeah, I want to perform. I want to be a part of what it is that you're trying to do. Like, I want to be seen. You know, so I appreciate you all answering the call and stepping up. I'm excited for you all to activate this space. I decided to go with red because I feel like it's a color that should be revered. It's a strong focal point. I don't want anyone else to look anywhere else other than this space here where the artists are performing. I said it in my statement, like I'm demanding your attention when it comes to these artists in this space. Like I'm not like, you really shouldn't be anywhere else thinking about anything else other than where you're at right now in this moment, and these artists sharing themselves with you. So I'm here to revere them and respect them, and I hope that you all are able to do the same. So no more talking from moi. We're going to get into the screenings, and then after that, we're going to get into the discussion. So again, thank you all for being here, and I love you all. Thank you. Thank you all. First film was by Daniel B. Coleman, who unfortunately couldn't be here in person, but wanted to still be a part of the project and submit their work. And that performance titled Playing Animal was specifically for the show. So I'm eternally grateful to Daniel. And this film that we just saw, Keep At It, titled Keep At It, by Nick K, is definitely a favorite of mine. I think when I stumbled across it on Instagram, actually, I was like, again, in the search, right, talking about how and where am I seeing myself and seeing like varying forms of expression in just the day-to-day, literally, just in leisurely being in spaces, taking up spaces. I saw that film and I felt like it represented what it is that I wanted to create in this space and the energy that I wanted to hold in this space. So I'm forever grateful to Nick for offering this film for us to view, and I'm really excited for their performance. It's gonna be amazing. We are going to set up for our discussion right now. So if you want to take a break, get some water, stretch your legs, whatever, feel free to do that now. And then we're going to get set up with our Q&A.
My name is Jesi. Any pronouns are fine. I'm going to be moderating the panel tonight, but before we get started, I wanted to make sure that we introduce everyone. I hate when I go to a panel and everyone says all these really brilliant things and I'm like, wait, who was that? Who said that? I don't know these people's names. So I'm gonna read folks' bios. When I read your bio, could you when I say your name, could you wave and make it clear that I'm talking about you? Don't look like the visiting pastor, okay, to church. Everybody's like, who? You don't even know who it is because he's sitting there with a straight face, okay? Y'all not gonna do that. We're gonna acknowledge you, we're gonna say your names, and then we're gonna clap for this because this show is actually called Reclaiming Reverence of Self. And so one of the ways that we revere people, obviously, is by clapping for them and celebrating them, and that's what we're doing here tonight. And the other thing that I really wanna emphasize in this panel is that this is a conversation, it's a discussion. I did bring questions because I don't want us to sit here in silence and stare at each other, but it would be great, y'all look great, actually, I would be fine to do that. But I do want it to be like engaging and conversational. And that said, there's a kind of panel where I ask a question and then everybody answers the question and then we get to the end of the line and I move to the next question. This is not that kind of panel. This is the kind of panel where I ask a question and someone feels called to answer and you answer it, and then someone feeds off of gives an answer, and then you engage in a conversation around the question is what I'm hoping for. So I just wanted to set that stage and let it be known what the expectations are. So to start us off with introductions, we have Kat Jones. Everybody give it up for Kat Jones. That's you. Exactly, that's you. Kat Jones is a Los Angeles-based artist whose projects use different mediums to resist Western cultural binaries. Black queer artistry is fundamental to these visual and auditory narratives that encourage a sharing of truths that result in healing. Please welcome your humble curator, the one, the only Kat Jones. Here we go. All right, and next we have Nick K. Nick K. All right. Born in 1989 in the Bronx, Nick K both makes performances and organizes performance spaces. Okay, I didn't get it, but I'm gonna laugh along. Yeah. Oh, keep it short. Oh, my bad. Okay, so I was given the bio, I was like practicing, like, ooh, this is a long bio. Okay, all right, I'll write this thing down. Their work has been performed nationally and internationally in many spaces, including, Akademie der Kunst, I'm gonna embarrass you, Akademie der Kunst in Berlin, Germany, Buddies in Bad Times Theater in Toronto, Encuentro 19 in Mexico City, the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London, the Portland Institute of Contemporary Art, and the University of Arts in Zurich, Switzerland. Okay, you said international now. We know who's going to go somewhere. In 2020, Nick was the winner of a Foundation for Contemporary Arts Award, and that same year they published their first book, Cotton Dreams, with Candor Arts. Please welcome Nick K to the panel. Absolutely. And we're revering today, so absolutely, we're holding it all up. Okay, Aasir Cherot, who I don't think is here, but Aasir Cherot uses poetry as a tool for spiritual alignment and to deepen his connection with ancestral powers. For him, movement is a tool to communicate emotion and a form of resistance against white supremacy, anti-blackness, and capitalism. Okay, and we're gonna welcome Aasir in spirit to the space. We feel you, you are here, you are on our minds. All right, Jaden Fields. Jaden Fields is a poet. Okay. Ow! You're ready for it, okay. Jaden Fields is a poet, a cultural worker, and a twerk king. Okay. He believes in the beauty of vulnerability and the strength in the stories our bodies hold. Jaden finds home in his body by trusting the hip magic of black bodies, which is an ancestral wisdom. Please welcome Jaden Fields to the panel. Danni, Cassette. Okay, what's funny is actually that y'all set in order because these are not in, like, it's not like there was like a, yeah, they set in order that you are on the paper, okay? It's Jumanji, it came off the paper and now it's here. Danni Cassette is an LA-based performance artist and songwriter. He was born into a musical family deeply rooted in the church and cultivated their own sound and expression very early on. Having toured over 40 cities across the US, audiences all over agree that Danni's stage presence is just electrifying. He's thrilled to have this chance to showcase their own revelations of self through movement, music, and visuals, demonstrating the constant link between the past and present influences where queer culture has existed. Welcome, Danni. All right, and Sir. Sir is a black, queer, trans, non-binary movement artist and researcher. Sir's movement work is rooted in navigating around or through trauma throughout the body and allowing any form of bodily expression to release. Sir's work is meant to serve black and brown bodies with the hope of showcasing how movement is a location for healing and liberation. Welcome, Sir. And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Daniel B. Coleman, they. He's a mixed Black, trans, queer, and non-binary artist scholar working at the nexus of critical thought and artistic praxis. Through mediums like dance, performance art, installation, performance for video, and site-particular work, they ask critical questions about Blackness, Black-brown coalitions, ecology, and transgender embodiment. They are invested in work that helps his people get more free. Unfortunately, Daniel can't be here with us tonight for the panel, but we are glad to share space with the brilliance he brings to his work and the larger conversation in which we are engaging. So we're going to go ahead and also revere Dr. Daniel B. Coleman. A round of applause. Awesome. All right, so I know I'm going to do a little overkill with the names here because when you answer this first question, I'm going to have you tell us your names and pronouns. Not everyone had their pronouns in their bios, so. Go ahead and say your name and pronoun and then answer the question, how does your work relate to issues around movement, masculinity, and vulnerability? So I'll start as an example. My name is Jesi. Any pronouns are fine. And I'm not an artist, so my work does not relate. I'm a land use consultant, so my work does not relate to any of those things. But please, kick us off. Anyone who feels so called, or we can go in order if that's easier for folks.
Danni, Cassette, thank you for reading. That was such a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much, Jesi. Pronouns are they, them, or money. And how does my work relate to
movement, masculinity, and vulnerability?
I think in just me being. I think a lot of how I move just through the world, being myself, that is my internal work, is essentially my outer work in the world. That's how I feel. Like, it just me being Danni Cassette, me making sure I stay whole, me holding space for myself. That way, as big and as loud as I want to be out in the world, it's already made for me. It's already, because I'm being it. So, yeah. I don't know, for sure.
Sir, they, them, and masculinity is a really big term. That's a big word for Elmo. But I had to do it. But yeah, I feel like I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
I'm weak.
Okay. I really I feel like I'm finding vulnerability in understanding my masculine appearance. I'm constantly, every time I look in the mirror, I'm constantly like reworking and navigating what exactly I'm looking at. So I really fall outside of gender, right? So even masculinity is something kind of weird for me to squirm into. But my vulnerability, I feel like, comes out with just my essence and being and understanding. But yeah, I think in my performance, you'll see it's definitely a fight for me to show vulnerability and accept masculinity as a piece of me as well, with some like grace and ease. Yeah.
Name, pronouns, stuff. Okay, I'm Jaden. My pronouns are he and him, or my name. Rude sirens, like, oh my god. Oh, it's for me. Thank you. So nice. Oh my god. Okay. I can. Yes, I will. Yes, I will try. I like to whisper talk, so I will try to project. Jaden, he, him, or my name, or that nigga, or sir. You know what? Yeah, I like that. You inspired me. Oh my god. And artistry, masculinity, vulnerability stuff. I feel like I don't really consider myself a masculine person. Like, I did the hormones thing, and then I realized that I was like really soft. I feel like my actual gender is just like soft nigga who's pretty. But I also I understand that my experience of my gender isn't the only experience that I have with it, because I'm a black person out in the world, and so I've always had a racialized gendered experience, and so looking like I do, I think being intentional about being exactly whoever I am in the moment out in the world is how I try to cultivate vulnerability. I think I really lean into all the stuff I was told dudes aren't supposed to do. And that's how I try to be vulnerable in everything that I do. Like, I try to do the opposite of what I saw niggas doing growing up. And that's be soft. And I feel like it's a blessing that I get to embody softness, that I get to choose that in how I show up in myself and in my body. And I have grace for the niggas I saw growing up who never had that chance, as well, you know. That doesn't excuse when they fuck up, but I have grace for them. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's all, you know, it's evolving. I feel like there's like, the most complete answer brings more questions, I feel like. It's like, gives us more material, right? Gives us more fodder for conversation.
Hello. Yeah.
Hello.
Nick K. They, them. Performance, masculinity, vulnerability, right? I feel like I'm on The Price is Right because of this carpet. Right? That would be wonderful. I would say the way that I'm thinking about gender, non-binary, binary in performance is starting with the body and trying to figure out ways in which certain movements have already sort of encoded in them perceptions, right? Like what we understand as a feminine movement, a feminine body, masculine movement, and how to use those things in a consciousness of how my body is read in different spaces, and sort of grappling with that openly and honestly as I can in my practice and in the representation of the work, and figuring out ways that I feel powerful. And I think in some moments it is challenging, right? Because like when you're doing work within an enclosed performance setting, you have control, you have different sort of performative tactics, right, in order to gain attention and to like convince the audience to be with you. But when you're outside, when you're doing site responsive or site specific work, like the location, which is like a childhood, basically where my grandma lives, it's a very different thing, right, to like be in a public space with that sort of scrutiny and people who knew you at different times in your gender journey and try and embody a certain type of energy. And I think I also have like a self-consciousness around realness, you know, like whatever that may be on the gender binary, trying to affirm the type of masculine and feminine energies that I bring to the table, despite what's in the back of my head, because we all live in this society, as like the right type of performance. Do you know what I mean? Like even if you are doing your own thing, right? I am doing my own Vogue, I'm doing my own footwork. I know what has been decided as the tens, right? So how do you like grapple with what sometimes is failure, right? Because like only a certain amount of people can get their tens within that framework, and the rest of us are just at the ball. But what happens if you decenter that, you know? And I think that's what I'm trying to think about as vulnerability, is that like failure part.
That's interesting. I think that you all gave really amazingly complete answers, which of course naturally makes me want to dig. I think it's interesting that, you know, some of you said that your performance of self and vulnerability comes very naturally, and it's just how you exist in the world. And then, sir, you mentioned that it actually is very hard for you to like access vulnerability. It's like there's a challenge there that you. So I'm wondering, and this kind of ties in with my next question, that we as like, how do you even define the we, right? Like that's one thing is like I always struggle with the language to like define ourselves, but that's the third question. I'm not getting there, but just we, right? We don't really see ourselves. And I suppose if we had to like grasp for words, it's like masculine of center people, or like sometimes I say people who were assigned female at birth but don't identify that way anymore. But that's too wordy, where you can't just evoke that in a conversation and be like, you know who I'm talking about. All of them motherfuckers. But we don't really see ourselves portrayed or participating in like mainstream media and performance spaces. So like how do you, so first I think one of the things that really popped in my head when y'all was talking, and it's kind of a basic question, but I'm interested, like how do you define masculinity, even if you don't feel like that word applies to you, like what are the boundaries of that like kind of semantic tool, like where, you know? And then I think the further question is, how do you cultivate like sort of a persona and a presence on stage and off that feels validating to yourself? You know, Nick, you were talking about being in a place with people who know you and people who've seen you before and people, you know, where your grandma lives, like that there's some challenge in feeling like you're allowed to be, or like empowered to be your full self in that space, that there's like a realness that, you know, like that you're aiming for something to win, and that failure in like the being yourself is the actual win, because that means that you're kind of writing the script yourself. So yeah, where do you pull that from? How do you find, where does that material come from? I think if I think about my own gender or my own like performance in the world, right? Is like, okay, there's like some Michael Jackson in there, you know what I mean? Or like, what influences did I grow up with that gave me the permission to say, oh, I could do that. I could color outside of these lines and it still feels validating and accepting.
Interesting. I don't know how to define masculinity. I feel like in those cases, I always see like images and like I hear sounds, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it's just like, an energy for me, and I'm not necessarily interested in defining it. I do find that I'm often like intersecting with it, and often in groups of people who I feel like I recognize myself in, and I think that's how I would say it. You know, there's just some moments where you're in a room and you're like, oh, this is us. You know what I mean? And I think after the fact, you try and figure out words to describe who was in the room. You know what I mean? So I think I want to work against that, because I find like, you know, a part of me is like super academic and I want to like find terms for everything, but sometimes it's just like in me, I don't actually have the definition, but I know that like I've known some of you before, I feel the vibe, and I feel like there's something that I see myself in you guys as well, and I think that is enough for me. In terms of your other thing was like energy, what was it? What was the other thing that you said? Performance.
Performance.
Oh, but what was?
I'm sorry. Well, which other thing? The first question or
this one?
Oh, okay. So that was the definition of masculinity, and then like kind of where so that we don't see ourselves in spaces, like right. Yeah. So like where does how do you cultivate the persona that you are? Yeah. Like, is it something that you feel like I just made it up one day and I was like, this is who I'm gonna be? Yeah. Or do you feel like there's like spaces where you felt validated, or people that you've seen out in the world, or groups that you're like, that feels like it gives me permission to be? Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's inherited. I feel like there was definitely a lot of people in my life. Like I had a babysitter named Allison, who everyone says was my mom's secret girlfriend. And she was definitely butch, and I had this memory of her in my mind wearing a dress, and I remember feeling really uncomfortable with it, and I didn't know like what the case was, and then I heard later that some kiki happened with her needing to go to some event with my mom, and they put her in a dress, right? So it was this really weird moment of like having this woman around me and like taking care of me and being butch, and like no one talking about it, and her having this relationship with my mom. And like being like, yeah, I feel Allison, like definitely someone in my back of my mind. I definitely also feel like coming out as like a queer baby in New York, most of my friends were cis, gay, and queer men. And I think a lot of how I have come to embrace different types of femininities in myself is through that proximity. And that's something that I think also comes with a very complex, needing to work through sexism and misogyny and that sort of thing. And I find myself in the contemporary doing a lot of reworking, because I feel like growing up in that queer setting, it was masculine center, lesbian was not fun, was not cool, was not sexy, right? And it was devalued, and of course that's sexism and misogyny and all of that, but it sort of was decentered as a model or even artistic material. No one wanted to talk about Audre Lorde type of thing, you know what I mean? Because she wasn't cute. Do you get what I'm saying? It's so disrespectful. But in terms of a different type of aesthetic, I learned the language of the girls, right? Of the ballroom scene, of drag. And I think a lot of what I'm doing currently is trying to reconcile those things inside of me with the little black girl who also grew up with Allison, you know what I mean? And that is my journey, you know what I mean? I was that little black girl who wanted to kiki with my boyfriends, but also had to deal with the sexism, and nobody wanted to teach me how to Vogue, you know what I mean?
I need a minute. Wow.
So I can backpack. I can also say that I feel like I was always attracted to very flamboyant energy, period. So no matter what the casing was, I just was oh, you're amazing, you know? Oh, you did this? It didn't matter, kind of who it was kind of coming from. So I agree, and mine is church. And you'll see tomorrow. I'll show you, I'm Church of God in Christ, Pentecostal straight up. My grandfather was a pastor for 52 years, so I really had no choice but to kind of be in it. And a lot of my, I remember Daryl Coley. I remember, sitting in my grandfather's living room, and he had on, a sequins, jacket. And I was like, who the fuck is this? I was like, so wait, men can, and I think at that moment, I was like, holy shit. So in anything that I feel as whoever I am, I can do whatever, because I saw a person that was supposed to be a man to me doing things that I knew weren't supposed to be under that, whatever it was supposed to be. And so same thing, it was and so, again, I don't know if I have a definition for masculinity, and as far as my performance and my movement in the world, I'm also reconciling, because I also would, I sung in choir since I was a tot, and so a lot of the times I would, be with the tenors, and the tenors were, excuse me, faggots. And so, a lot of what I am reconciled, if anything, I feel like is, I'm saying this to myself, it's my inner faggot. Where do I stand in that, right? Where is my, I understand I'm flamboyant. I understand, hello, look at me. You know what I mean? Hello, I have a scarf, fucking look at me, right? And so I think with me, it's again, I don't know if I have a definition, but it is my place in that the Daryl Coleys, the Ricky Dillards, and these very flamboyant people that I was immediately attracted to, and I knew I necessarily wasn't girl, boy in that. Where is, that's my own, that's also in my performance coming from church. That is how I move about in the world, and that's my kind of reconciliation, and really my reclaim. Look at that. Yeah.
Look at that. Brought it back.
Can you repeat one more time definition of masculinity? And then
yeah, they tie in together, and you don't have to answer them but there's sort of, I feel like what's floating around in the conversation is that there is this word masculinity, and there's femininity, and there's this binary, right? And on the one hand, both of those terms are very hard to define, and quite frankly, in 2022, do and should make us uncomfortable to try to apply this is that and this is that, So I feel like there's that part, but then also then where do you draw? What the fuck are you? And where did that come from? Is it something that's just yeah, I just met one day I was a kid and I was I think this is who I want to be, or more realistically, is it there's this whole path of influences and there's this journey that finally led you to or not even finally, because we are still on it. but that's like kind of culminated in this is the person that I am. This is, you know, sort of in the way that life and the spaces that we're in are always a performance. Like, what character are you playing? Where'd that character come from?
Got you. So, yeah, masculinity, that's a tough one for me. I grew up in a very like matriarchal household. So a lot of, sometimes I compare masculinity with dominance, but I've seen dominance in a very feminine way. It's in the eyes. That's where I feel the intensity. That's where I pull my dominance, my masculinity from, is in the eyes. Because my voice, I don't feel like does that. That's my own dysphoric situation going on. Because in my head, my voice is way deeper than it sounds. Trust me. It's like, it's down here. Yeah, so I feel like I've seen masculinity in femmes, in femininity, you know. That's how I've kind of seen that mirrored. And how, like, images of self, really quick, don't know my dad, right? So I didn't have masculine or men in my space. I grew up with 2 women. I kind of constantly, I was looking in the mirror a lot. It was a lot of like self-identification, trying to figure out what that even looked like. I used to venture far into like, I'm hardcore, I'm like stud, you know, I'm sitting like this. I play, you know, I'm into basketball. I don't cross my legs, you feel me? I was deep in there. It was really bad for me, because I was projecting this image of trying to find myself. But I have very feminine, sensual moments that you'll see tomorrow. But that's very masculine for me, because then it's allowing me to be myself, but also having like power in that. So it's like, they're all like kind of like two-faced mirrored, you know what I'm saying? Because you can be masculine with a lace bra on and a do-rag, you feel me? Which you'll see kind of tomorrow, you know? Like,
Spoiler alert.
I haven't seen that. So I had to make it up. And I'm still reconciling, and I'm very nervous about it. It's very scary. So tomorrow I'm very scared. I'm being real with everybody. We all about to, but I'm a little masochistic. I love to put myself up to a challenge. So tomorrow I'm leaping, and y'all just gonna see that jump. So yeah.
Check. Okay.
We hear you.
I'm thinking about, like, it's funny because like I've had this conversation before in many spaces, and thinking about, yeah, like the word masculinity, like it almost feels like we hear it so much, and it almost feels like a commercial term. So yeah, I feel like sometimes I have to like really sit with that word and like, what does it mean for my identity, and like what type of masculine energy do I harness, and where did that come from? And for me, I think about, like, in this moment, like when you were talking about church and you were talking about your babysitter, and you know, all of it, right? Like all of the women that were in our lives, and I think about my mom. And it's funny because like I never really thought, like, when I think about my mom, when I thought of my mom, my adopted mother, I think about like that whole story, you know. I don't necessarily, I don't think about her as a person, as an individual, and I feel like I'm challenged to think about that more, and how she's played a huge impact on how I identify and express myself. She was always someone, and is to this day someone that's like, I'm showing up, I'm suited and I'm booted, I got the walk-in closet, I'm intentional about everything that I wear, I'm intentional about who's going to see me. And so for me, I feel like growing up an only kid, I think clothing and play was really kind of the only outlet that I had. I didn't really like hang out with people, but like VH1, you know, was on, or MTV was on. I was in the living room. I put foil on my teeth. I had a white tank, and I was Cisco. Sue me, that was me. You know what I'm saying? Like I was embodying all of these people that like brought me joy. And like, I was like, I like how this tank fits on me. I like how broad my shoulders are because, you know, I'm in swim or whatever. And so I felt like I'm just playing with this idea of like what masculinity looks like to other people, and what it looks like to me. And I don't know if I have like a specific word for it, but I think like even now and like how I'm sitting, I feel like that's also a form of play. Because I think about like, okay, well, like I don't wanna like sit with my legs crossed. I wanna sit, you know? And I think about what that reads to people when I'm out, you know, if I'm in spaces where I'm around straight folks and they're like, what the fuck is this? You know? And I feel like, I feel like it may be a bit more than just masculinity and just like expanding expression and like what this feels like for me. Like I feel like a couple years ago I would never wear shoes like this. I would never have hoops. You know, I would never wear a top where my back is out. I would never wear any of these things that I felt like, well, that's not masculine, so I'm not gonna rock it. You know, like I wore the camo shorts with the Nike Dunks, you know, with a snapback that didn't fit, you know, because that's just what I had, because that was the script that was given to me, because I didn't see people performing in massive spaces and just even not performing, but just like existing in varying ways. And I think it took a lot of like, I'm gonna give some credit to myself and all my fire placements. It took a lot of just kind of like stepping out and just kind of pushing the envelope a little bit and being like, okay, I'm not used to wearing things that are form-fitting. I'm not used to wearing things that are like, you know, just anything that's typical or that's been outlined for masc and for femme. Like I feel like I've been pushing that boundary and like just playing around with clothing, and it feels really good. It feels really good to just like, even in the basic sense of just like wearing a skirt. You know, it's so little and small, and it's funny because I feel like there are a lot of people who wouldn't think about that. You know, but when you're walking and existing in a space where it's like you're only supposed to dress this way. You know, if you want to get this kind of love or you want to get this kind of support, you have to dress this way. So to do the opposite of that is scary and it's vulnerable. And it's like, well, fuck, I want love. I want security. I want to be seen. So how can I get that while also honoring myself? And so I feel like every day is a challenge to do that. And yeah, it's kind of like, I like the looks. I like when people are confused. I like when people don't know like what to do or how to approach me. That's space for a conversation. If you don't know, let's talk about it, you know? So, yeah, that's it.
Masculinity and other things. I'm trying to remember all the questions. Masculinity, I can't sing. I always wish I could, but I can't. It's devastating for me. Masculinity, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I thought I knew when I was trying to find myself. I thought you had to look, like everyone was saying, I thought you had to look a certain way and walk a certain way. I tried to be a stud, and I don't have the swag for that lifestyle choice. I just don't. I couldn't live in that and be at home in my body. And I was also sad that I couldn't do that either. I love studs. I was just with this like old school butch lesbian last night, and it was the best. Like, oh my God, she like was of the era of like In the Life, you know? Yeah, like, oh man. We were just having dinner. It was a group of people. She's the partner of someone that I am connected to, and you know, she's amazing. And I was just like enthralled by I was like, yeah, I know that I don't actually embody that, but when I see it, I love it. And I've always been drawn to it. I think. I remember when I first saw the Dykes on Bikes, and I saw this black butch with this like leather vest, and I was like, I think I'm supposed to want to embody this, but I really just want to like ride on the back and just like, and I was like, oh my God, like you're so like, yeah, like wow. Wow, I'm like, oh, clutching my pearls type energy. So yeah, I don't know. Masculinity, I don't know what it is. I grew up in the church, also Kojic, and that had a huge impact on my life. Yeah, Church of God in Christ. Why are we using acronyms? Church of God in Christ. But we got to spell it out for the people. And I was drawn similarly to the drama. Like, they are some dramatic people. Like the pastors, like, I mean, you understand. And just like when they would just be like these men who were just hooping and hollering and jumping around with their bright suits and their all of the adornment, I was like, wow, and like this is a show, like this is a production, like. Everybody at simultaneously is catching the Holy Spirit because he just said a few things. Like, I wanted to be that. I was like, that. I don't know if I want to preach, but I know that I want to say a few things and have people like fall out and just like not be able to help themselves. I want to have a very dramatic outfit on, like the whole drama of like even coming to the prayer. Like when he walks up there to the pulpit, like all of that, I was like, that's what I want. And then I also I saw my little boy cousins like opening doors for women, and they would be called like, oh, you're such a little gentleman. And I wanted some like tall femme to say that to me. I was just like, oh my God. She would like, oh my God, you're so cute. And I was just like, yes, I want that. I want some tall femme to just like, you're such a cute little gentleman. Like that was the dream. When I was a child, I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like I just I want to be of service like that to some femme energy. Like that's what I wanted. And I really wanted the drama of like church hats. Like I wanted to be able to wear a church hat too. Like that felt really dignified and dramatic and like all eyes are on you. I'm a Leo sun, so like I really want to be looked at apparently. It's like gaze upon me in awe. Just how I felt when I would see the like matriarchs of the church showing up in their church hats and that drama, like the fashion, like all of that was really enticing to me. And it didn't really like register like gender things at all. Like I didn't have images or like anything that like sparked that I could be anything but a little girl. But when I saw these things, I was like, these are the things that I want to somehow get to a place where I could do that. Prince was really influential. Like I just want to be pretty and be looked at and wear dramatic outfits. So yeah, very early on, Prince was someone that I was like, how does everybody like love him? Like no questions, like men, like my like, like fucking hood nigga ass, like hard ass motherfucking cousins are like, purple rain, I'm like, okay, like these niggas who are like, not the type that I would ever think would even sing, because that is not masculine enough for them. We're like, purple rain. So Prince was somehow like transcended everybody's expectation, and everybody was like also kind of attracted to Prince too. Mm-hmm. So that's what I also liked. It was like, I want everybody to want me. I think I want that, and also Aaliyah, because she kind of had that like tomboy vibe, a little bit, she's got like with a little baggy pants, but then a little crop top or whatever. And so I had a pair of my older cousins, these red shorts that were kind of baggy on me, and for a whole summer, I like roll up my shirt, wear these baggy red shorts. They were so faded and they were not very cute. And I would beg my mother to let me straighten my hair so I could have it over the front like a lean. And just would just body roll us. Because that was the closest I could get to because my mother really wanted a princess, which I'm like, well, you got it now. But at the time, that was not the lifestyle choice I was trying to make as a child. And doing Aaliyah was the closest I could get without my mother trying to pray away anything. So yeah, I think I think I got I did it.
You did that. No, I really appreciate. I mean, so I think everyone spoke about a journey, and Sir used a word that I think is interesting, and it's stud. I just want to know by a show of hands, and don't lie if you don't know the word. You don't know the word. How many people in here know what a stud is? Raise your hand if you know the term. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I always, here we are talking about reverence and reclaiming reverence, and I think there's stud is an interesting. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina in the 90s and early 2000s, and I identified as a stud for sure. I was baggy jeans and Air Force Ones or Jordans and a hat cap all the time, and in some ways it felt like a very safe place to exist. And I think while y'all were talking about trying to find kind of this journey that I think we all can relate to, of trying to find how do what am I, and how do I embody that in a way that is comfortable but also feels safe out in the world? There was years ago after I graduated from undergrad, I was backpacking around the world, and I noticed very quickly that in most places in the world, people thought that I was a young black male, and also that it kept me safe. And so there's so many I feel like all your answers made me think I want to talk about so many things, and now I'm trying to disambiguate the question so that it's a coherent one. But I think my first question is about safety. So when we're talking about being vulnerable and reclaiming self, and yes, swoop bang, and yes, Air Force Ones, and yes, baggy shirt and baggy pants, but I'm also wondering when do you feel safe being the most flamboyant self that you are, and all the way out? And then are there times when you don't feel safe? And I think also are there times when that is safety, that is the safe choice?
It's interesting that you say that, because when we were ending the last round, I was thinking about, as I was talking about being a little black girl, I felt as a little black girl, I wasn't allowed femininity. I felt it was inherently a masculine space, right? It was you always had to prove how feminine you were, because your hair wasn't what feminine was supposed to be It wasn't bouncing, whatever it was, right? Your body was too thick, it was too muscular. So I think in the beginning it was I was who I was in the world, right? You come out, you're living your life, and then people tell you you are or you aren't worthy. And I think a lot of the times how I thought about masculinity was me not being worthy of love and affirmation as a little black girl, I just wanted to be liked and affirmed, and that never happened. So I think in a lot of ways I was for a very long time trying to figure out what that meant. And I also grew up in the church, but many different types, which I think also had a lot of different coded language. I went to Catholic school, so I had a uniform, so I had to adhere to a certain type of embodied gender. I went to an evangelistic church with my mom. I went to a Baptist church with my dad. So I think I was constantly trying to figure out different habits and different expectations. And then, growing older, I think the tough part was that as I talk about failure, I just realized that I was always failing. You know what I mean? It was around the time of Beyonce's Crazy in Love, where I had these jeans. I was really trying to get that look the low rise look, and it doesn't work with my body because I have a high butt. And it was just this moment where I was like looking in the mirror and I was like, this is not working. Like, I don't actually look good, you know what I mean? And I was like trying to figure out what was going on. And what was happening was it wasn't me, you know what I mean? But it wasn't like I wanted to be feminine or masculine or whatever the case is. It was just like I wanted to be like desirable, but I wasn't desirable to myself. So I was like, obviously I'm not Beyonce, but that's okay. And I can still do all the dance moves, but but I can wear something else. So I can wear something else. And I think, you know, being someone who went to like Catholic school and church, like I was used to uniform. So kind of sticking to like jeans and t-shirt variations and like trying to find ways to use simple clothing to express different parts of myself is how I rectify that. I get chased out of bathrooms 1 minute and then the next, it doesn't actually matter. It's all relative, right? In the same day, I could get chased out of a bathroom twice, you know, and then a cab driver is trying to marry me, you know what I mean, and take me home and like wants me to be his wife, you know what I mean? And you're like, I have no idea who these people are, like what their projection, you know what I mean? Because I could be wearing the same exact thing. I could be wearing this outfit. So I try and just like I feel like in terms of like the stud or AG type attitude, I feel like growing up, I tried to think about the energy, like all the studs and AGs that I knew as teenagers, they were like our bodyguards, you know what I mean? They were like the people who, when we were on the train, were ready to throw down. So I think about that type of energy, like, okay, whatever I'm wearing, I just have to be ready to throw down. And I think that's where I'm at, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. If I'm wearing heels, sneakers, I gotta run, I gotta throw down, I gotta defend how I wanna be in the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned a lot of the stuff about the bodyguards, about safety. Yeah, I do. I think, you know, it's interesting because stud, I do think is a very racialized term around, like, I think that, yeah, it's a specifically like black, masculine of center term. And it also is a term that I just wonder if if it's a coincidence that it's used to refer to chattel, right? A stud is literally like a horse or some other farm animal that is so like virulent and like mates so well and produces such great offspring that it's taken around to other farms to mate with, you know, farm animals of the same species without necessarily that other farm animals' consent. And I feel like there's something about racialized masculinity that for me on my journey was very important to represent a certain kind of, like, stud is almost too perfect a word to apply to it, because it was sort of taking these aspects of masculinity that made me feel safe and made me feel like I fit in with black men. And so, yeah, I wonder if that's part of anyone else's experience as well, and this journey and the parts of it where we were grappling for something that made us feel safe, even if it didn't feel like this actually applies to me and who I am.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I feel like I'm still on this journey, but it's funny, I think the majority of people on this panel have grown up in the church. And it's interesting how that's like shaped, how we show up. But I think about, safety, and I also think about visibility and being seen. And I think for me, like, I wore skirts that covered the knees because that's what you did, you know. Mother of the church didn't have their knees exposed, so you're not gonna have your knees exposed either. That's just what it is. And so I felt like that shaped my identity. I know that's not specifically around safety, but I think like maybe safety in the sense of fitting in and making sure that I'm wearing what I need to wear in order to not cause a ruckus. And if I step too far out of that, then I'm gonna be in the spotlight and I'm not gonna feel safe, and I don't want that. I wanna feel safe. And then yeah, there were moments where I was like, all right, I'm gonna dress a bit more stud-like, and like I said, wear shorts and wear t-shirts and wear all these things and be on the train. And I think for me, in terms of my personality, like, I'm very tender, I'm very sweet, I'm very like, yeah, I think those adjectives describe who I am. And wearing those types of clothing, I think I wore that, yes, because I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to make sure that like if I was in these spaces that no one was gonna like say something about me. No one was gonna approach me. But it's just like what Nick said, it didn't help at all. Like, if anything, it made it worse. Because men would see you, or they would see me, and they'd be like, I see what you're trying to do, and that's a threat to, thank you, to my masculinity. And so, based on like how they're feeling, and how I'm showing up in the space, I'm now, making myself vulnerable to whatever it is that can happen. And so it's like, as a result of me trying to feel safe by dressing a certain way, I'm actually in a position where I'm unsafe. Yeah, and I think I've just been in a lot of experiences where I've been around cis men, thinking about like my youth and thinking about just, my safety, just being a young girl walking to school by myself. What am I wearing? Again, wearing uniforms, so it's like, the things that I have on are neutral enough to where maybe you wouldn't suspect anything, or you're not necessarily thinking about like, oh, that's a girl or that's a boy, because what I have on is pretty neutral. I'm wearing Dickies shorts or Dickies pants, and I'm wearing a white polo button up, so that's pretty standard. But again, it doesn't keep you safe. I think being in this world, being a black person, just showing up every day, there's always gonna be that risk. And so, knowing that, it's like, well, fuck it. I'm going to wear just what makes me feel comfortable, or I'm going to just show up in whatever makes me feel comfortable and pray that I'm protected every day. So I think that's all I wanted to say.
I definitely agree. Clothing was a huge safety for me, but then it became like partially an issue again because I was trying real hard, and I ended up being with a group of fellow studs at the time, and I came across this one like space in my life, when I was younger, where I was like, okay, so these clothes really don't show everything. They don't really explain my essence and who I am, because I'm generally attracted to very masculine people, and that became a huge issue in a black stud space, right? And when I came to terms with that, it didn't go well at all. I told my bruh at the time, and that was serious term. I used that very, like, my bro, that was my homie, and I like started to fall in love with one of my really close friends that was very masculine as well. And I was like, told my truth. I speak my truth, right? And I didn't go over well. Because they're like, oh, word? Like, are you gay? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, why are you gonna say that to me? I'm like, and then I had to work through that, right? Because I'm all like, I'm feeling safe wearing all these clothes with y'all, but I'm like, I'm with the shits. So, that was a really hard pill to swallow at a young age. But then as coming into that, I kind of didn't identify as a stud anymore, and just kind of non-binary, and really lived in my essence and be really real with people, right? Just because I look like this, don't mean, because a lot of people, when you interact with folks, they get really comfortable in this image, oh, since you look like that, this is what that is, and it's not at all. So yeah, it was safety at first, but then it became a big like hindrance, because then it became with these like expectations and how I navigate, and I don't want to make nobody feel weird, right? And then also like, and that came with also like mannerisms and gestures and dancing and twerking, like, cause I love to twerk, but I was like, that's rough. That was rough for me. But then I grew out of that, right? It's a real testimony. I grew out of that. Still growing. So yeah, it was the balance. The fight was rough, because it was like my fellow people that I felt comfortable with, But I'm like, I still can't be myself. Mm-hmm. So that was rough. But now people that know me, and that's what it is.
So I'm just gonna speak to the two things you said, stud. I feel like a lot of times, if I could just, masculinity was put on me, coming from a single mother being the oldest. She worked 3 jobs at one point, and so I noticed the difference in how she treated my brother, though technically that was the masculine one in the house. She loved him. I had to go do the chores. He got to go play outside. I had to go throw out the garbage. I had to go with her to go fix the toilet. And so I kind of, at first, kind of hated stud, because I felt like it added to what that brought to me from what I knew as work as a child. Like my nickname growing up was Cinderella. That's not funny. That's not fucking funny. Nobody wants to be the maid of their family, and that's how I felt growing up. And so, sorry, I had to speak to stud. Sorry, because that for me, my masculinity for me, even in dating, it's felt like work. It's like, you got to pick up the check. You got to open the door. It's like, but I'm fine as fuck. Why can't you open the goddamn door? The fuck? Like, what I'm saying? Like, I'm also a pretty, I'm saying? Like, I'm also like, I said this on my page recently, like, I'm pretty and handsome. Where's room for that? I'm pretty and handsome. You know what I'm saying? And that was given to me. Masculinity was given to me. And it's so weird to see my mother almost, when I first came into being that, hate it. But it's like, but girl, what did you fucking expect? Because you basically had me being your part. I'm saying? I was around here doing all this shit. When I was fixing the toilet, you didn't have a problem with that shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, can I speak candidly? May I speak candidly? So to me, stud, absolutely, for me, it was a bit of a trigger. And when I first came into my own, of course I was like, well, yeah, I'm supposed to be a bruh. You're supposed to, of course, we all had that. And I've come into my own space now. And as far as safety, I will say that my safety is knowing where I'm not safe. And where I had to learn I wasn't safe was, I used to play, so I'm a singer. Y'all see tomorrow, I'm gonna sing my ass off. I'm a singer, and I used to do lady shows. And before I knew what non-binary was, I told them, I said, hey, I don't want you to necessarily call me a lady, but I'll come here and celebrate the other ladies, right? And the last time I did it, I went in the green room, and somebody was like, oh yeah, you must be one of the musicians. And I was like, nah, like I'm here playing ladies' night. She was like, whatever. Literally, I'm on the bill. Like, I'm on the fucking bill, getting paid like you're getting paid. And I'm like, whatever, right? And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, holy shit, Danni. Like, they don't even fucking see you. And the thing is, I can out-sing most of these motherfuckers on the bill too, right? Like, me being ethereal, me sing, you know what I'm saying? And so I think, to me, safety is like, no matter what I wear, I have learned where I'm not, and that's kept me safe.
I can with the whatever, though. That's so disrespectful. You're right, like, ooh, the disrespect. Stud, safety. I gotta say it, like, it comes back to me. With stud, when I was looking for myself, I saw stud tonight. There was something about that I was like, this looks closer to what I want. Because they were the ones being like, serving femmes, and were like, being called little gentlemen. So I was like, okay, that seems closer to what I want to do. And then I realized quickly that that was not me. So it was like a quick minute that I was trying to embody that, and then it did not fit. But shout out to this. I couldn't really like, I couldn't really embody this energy, you know? It was very like performance. I was just like, okay, like, you know, like you know, like I don't know, like I just, I couldn't do it, you know? Like my dream of like my truest embodiment is to like be like in a very fabulous robe with like a long cigarette holder. I don't even smoke cigarettes. I'll have a blunt and like at a window just like gazing out of the window. Like, you know, like that's what I want to be. That's my gender, is whatever that is. You know?
Whatever that is.
And safety, I learned young that safety is elusive and not always possible. I survived childhood sexual abuse and trafficking, and so I learned very early that like safety is just not guaranteed, possible. I don't expect it ever. And so I similarly, like I am always on the lookout. Like I stay ready, so I gotta get ready kind of vibe, you know? Like if it gotta pop off, I'm ready. I'm also like I walk around like this every day, and going from being called a dyke or like whatever by like men who were like, you're trying to do masculinity, whatever, to being called a faggot by those same men, is a different kind of, what's the word? Heartbreak, I would say. Because they're still like, you're doing masculinity wrong. Which I'm like, I ain't trying to, like, leave me alone. Like, you're jealous. You just wish you could do all this. Like, you just can't. But yeah, so I don't. Safety is when I'm with other people like this. You know, this is what feels safest. It's the check-in, like text me when you get home, like that kind of thing is what, like being able to connect with people in that way and know who is also down for me is when I feel safe. When I know who my people are. Yeah, because that at the end of the day, that we all we got. You know, I can't depend on systems or cis men to aggro, especially not cis men, like at all. And like having the facial hair, I didn't expect the ways that I wasn't ready for what was going to happen with cis men now that I have a beard. Is they are gay, first of all. A lot of them are very gay. It's like, are you flirting with me right now? like excuse me, like if you're like I'm not trying to get it with you, but like I feel like you're flirting with me. And like they're so deeply insecure. Like I feel like everybody, like the world's definition of masculinity, like just looks like a lot of insecurity and like doing the fucking most to prove something. I'm like, why are you doing so much? Like, you need to like sit down and like take a breath. like to always be like this, like, you know, like I have to sometimes move through the world with that kind of like constriction in my body because of them. You know, I have to be on a certain sort of guard for like, okay, I know what I'm looking like. Yes, I live in LA and like I'm likely to pass a faggot on the street, but I might also pass somebody else who's gonna have a lot of feelings about how I'm doing what they perceive to be masculinity. And so, you know, then I have to also brace myself. And you know, yeah, white supremacy and like all the things, you know. And that's not an excuse for the fuckery, you know, like I don't want to be on guard, and I don't want them to be in that same like level of that weathering on your body, like the weathering that a lot of black people have to do just to like navigate the world. But like I wish for all of us to be able to like release, you know, like safety, like my highest vision of safety for all of us is that like we don't have to move through the world like that. Like we can just be We can just be and move through the world, and it's fine. Like, you're gonna get from your point A to point B just fine. You know, that's the dream. You know.
All right, I've been told that we need to wrap it up. So I have so much. I feel like we could talk, honestly, and we should. I could talk about this like with y'all forever, and I hope that we do. And so maybe we have time for just like any closing thoughts that folks have. Anything that feels like you want to wrap up, or any thoughts that are floating around that you feel like you didn't get to complete. Y'all Gucci, okay? We done. But yeah, I think that, you know, in general, the language that we have around reverence, you know, going back to the title of the show, Reclaiming Reverence of Self, is oftentimes very gendered, and it's very steeped in this, like, these white supremacist structures of dominance. Like, even the word stud fits in there, king and queen and gentleman and lady. And I'm just wondering about we talked a lot about how this journey that you're on to, like, of acceptance of existence, right? Figuring out how to just do this thing. But then how do you revere? Like, is there language, is there thought, are there actions that you do that feel like they revere? And we're gonna keep it super short, just like closing it out. Yeah.
Interesting. I was gonna mention desire, so maybe that is intertwined. It was interesting because you were talking about, like, safety, and it made me think a lot about gender and performance in relationship to desire and sex, you know what I mean? And we're, like, thinking about realness, talking about performance. And I think, you know, in so many ways, it's a language in which is understood as powerful, and, you know, in the scene, like, growing up, it was like, studs, AGs got all the girls. That was just like what it was. And I remember just like, this was, you know, Beyonce, low-rise jeans time. And I was just like, how can I make this work? You know what I mean? And I think it was like one of those moments where people were like, you're a STEM, you know stems?
That's a stud, you know? And femme, for those who don't know.
Which is not necessarily the safest place to be, but I just remember being like, having a lot of love and reverence for AGs and studs, and just being like, you know, this is wonderful, this is beautiful, and I'm gonna hang out here, but I don't have what it takes to do that. But those jeans do look good on me, right? So those jeans look good, and I can do Beyonce's moves, and that's okay. And I'm gonna do both at the same time, and there's gonna be somebody who wants to kiss me at this party. I was like, we can make that work. We can make that work.
Yes. All right. Yes. Yep. Final thoughts.
How do we revere?
I mean, like, you know, just let niggas just do what you gonna do, like, whatever, you know, like, and for me, you know, I don't know, like, I feel like I like to adorn myself with a lot of different things. Like, adornment feels very regal to me, especially things that I can move in and drape around me in very dramatic ways. Like, I'm telling you, my actual gender is just drama, you know? Like, you know, like, that is what it is. I just want to be able to just, like, glide, and so whenever I live into that and just, like, adorn myself, that's when I'm feeling my most, like, revered. And when anyone compliments on all the work that I do to get myself, to give a look, you know? So everyone that came up to me and complimented my glasses and, like, everything, like, thank you, like, that felt really good. So that's reverence too.
I would say revere, I find out the power of my own name, Danni. You know, so I was born Elise Danielle Calhoun. And in my own coming to self, Danni was like, damn, that feels more like me. Like, I know I was born Elise, but fuck, Danni. So when it comes to the, in how we want to be, to me, Danni is so important. So my name and what I've worked to be Danni is very essential to me.
Honestly, I just want to end with living your truth. No matter how you present, speak your truth, right? And that's all.
I don't know what to say, but going back to real quick, what you shared about your appearance, and not ultimately, but for me, like making sure that I'm loved and that I feel loved, regardless of how I show up in space. I think that's like the most important thing for me. And I think there's a lot of beauty in how everyone presents and shows up and identifies, whether it's stud, whether it's femme, whether it's STEM, whether it's like whatever it is. And I think at the end of the day, the objective is just to have space for us all to see each other without, operating under this lens of scarcity, like scarcity of love, scarcity of visibility and support and like being held. So when we create spaces, abundant spaces for all of us to just be who we are, then I can show up wearing whatever the fuck I want. You can show up wearing whatever the fuck you want. And if I see that I'm attracted to you, then I'm going to reach out to you, because although,
Call me maybe.
hey, I see you, and while spaces aren't, I don't know where I heard it, but like there's no such thing as a safe space, but we can make it as safe as possible. The more of those kind of spaces that we have, then the more we can have everybody in the room feeling seen, feeling loved, getting picked in the Beyonce jeans, you know what I'm saying? Like wearing whatever the fuck, you know what I'm saying? Or like even moving, right? Like I can dance with another stud because the fuck, like I'm attracted to you, vice versa. Like why not? Like there's space, And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. And I think maybe as a result of, safety, vulnerability, all of those things, we feel like we're not able to show up in those ways. Maybe it's my wish that like if I'm interested in another masked person, that they communicate that to me, because what a tragedy for that to be like a love loss. Or what a tragedy, like let's make the space for us all to exist and to perform and to move and to communicate with each other. So I think that's it for me. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful place to end the conversation. And I want to thank all of our artists and our curator, of course, our amazing curator, Kat Jones, again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Want to thank you, Jesi, for like this moderating this entire this conversation, this beautiful, brilliant conversation, and you just tying everything together and showing up and existing the way that you exist. And I love you, and I'm honored to know you, and I'm super thankful that you're even here and was down. So right. I appreciate you.
You said speak. I said you can't shut me up. Okay, it's my show now.
Okay, I think that's it. I think we've wrapped up the discussion panel. We're gonna put the the films back on so you all can take a look at it if you got here a little late and didn't. I think that's it. I'm really thankful to all of you for being here and listening to all of the artists. Make sure you come back tomorrow, same place, same time. We're gonna have Sir, we're gonna have Danni, Jaden, Aasir, Nick. Yeah, it's gonna be a great show. So you'll be able to see physically visually what everyone is talked about here today. So thank you all for being here, and I look forward to seeing you for the other nights. Thank you.